that. 6 years ago, I had to put in a deeper well. My well went to 60 foot, and a lot of my neighbors around me, they go to 60 foot still. I had to go down to 125 feet, and I became involved in water issues because the aquifer is dropping, and we will more and more have to put in deeper wells. This is high recharge for the Floridan aquifer, this whole area going up to North Florida and down the central part of this part of Florida. So if our aquifer drops further because of development, which I know Marion County really wants a lot of development, wants development. The developers are running the bridge again. I want to know what shape our personal wells will be and how deep do we have to go. Does anybody have a handle on how deep, I'm retired now, how deep in 10 years' time I will have to dig my well? I can't afford anymore.
That was a lot. If I can answer all those
I'm
questions,
sorry.
I'd be rich, I'd retire, I'd go out, I'd do a lot of things with that. The water issue is complicated. I could have spent the whole night talking about water. The amount of water and the water quantity, and the quality of the water, and the pollution effect. And I don't think we can hang all this on Plum Creek. Okay? We've never done that. If the development doesn't come here to Plum Creek, it's going to come somewhere else. You know, it'll be in the western part of the county. Somewhere, as long as people are moving to Florida, they're going to be drinking water. That's just the reality of it. So I haven't spent a lot of time blaming Plum Creek for the water problem. We're all a part of that problem, and the weather's not helping, although it's getting better this year. So I really can't answer that question other than to say, you know, the water quality issue, I will say that is a little bit more of a concern. You said this is high aquifer recharge. Technically, it's not. The recharge part is in the western part of the county. That's where the water goes straight down to the aquifer because nothing holds it. In the eastern third of the county, the water stays right on the surface. So if we're causing problems, if there's contaminants or pollution, we're living in it. You know, it's right there. Some of it goes into the ground at areas. A lot of it just stays on the ground and it evaporates. You know, if you flew over this eastern part of the county in a plane and looked down while the sun was shining, you just see this kind of glistening passing over like a mirror-like areas. If you're familiar with this area, you know, we're not necessarily talking about lakes. We're talking about 3, 4, 6 inches of water for several months out of the year while it's wet. And then it dries up and goes away. All the trees and the environment out there is adapted to that. It's that kind of well. It's that kind of wet. It holds all the water and then releases it slowly. Helps prevent flooding problems, those kind of problems. So this doesn't really recharge the aquifer. It does flow northward. Well, almost all of this flows south down through Lockloosa Creek into the Orange Lake system and ultimately to the Ocklawaha, St. John's, and then Anacocha. So most of it's going unless it stays on site. But a lot of it just stays in the same area. So you have to kind of use your judgment on whether or not there are going to be water quality impacts. Plum Creek insists there are state requirements where they can't harm the water quality, but of course they will. You can't build subdivisions with driveways and oil leaking and animals going in the backyard and those kind of things without expecting water quality impacts. Water quantity is a lot more complicated, and I'm not going to go into Plum Creek for that.
Do you have the map that shows the agricultural area proposing the intensive ag? It breaks up where the houses would go. I thought I saw that flash by.
This one?
No, that. The yellow part, that's the ag part, right?
Oh, that little part right there, just
That
east
tan
of
is
Windsor.
on the right side of the map, no,
Area right here.
and no, the others, all that. Isn't that zone, they want that to be zoned for intensive ag, right?
Ag. And first let me say this map is a little dated. This was the original map they submitted back in December. They tweaked a few things, but that's why I didn't show it. Because no difference to the naked eye, really. It's still pretty much their plan, but technically it's not the right map. So I didn't use it. But yes, this area here and this color is what they're designating as ag, and it can be, yes, any kind of agriculture.
So my question is, that's Lockloosa Creek that runs down to Lockloosa and then across Cross Creek and then to Orange Lake and then down into the sink, down into people's groundwater and on down to Silver Springs. You know, the dye trace test that they did at Haiti Dairy took less than 6 months to get
If
right.
it gets into the ground.
Mm-hmm. So I've read articles that Jack Payne with ICUS said he wants to partner with Monsanto to do research on that. intensive ag area, and that, is that premature for him to say something like that, or?
Actually, the part where they may be doing some growing some things there, but they've,
No, in the
the area where
future?
they're talking about partnering with big ag is this southwest area here, where they talked about, and none of this is talk at this point.
Right.
It's not in their application, but they've been talking with IFAS at the University of Florida, Monsanto, some of the big growers, this is what they're telling us. They're talking about the possibility of having experimental agriculture and some other kinds of things like that on this land. Whether it'll happen or not, no one ever knows. I'm told that there's no shortage of this land for UF IFAS. They've got plenty of that around already. So we don't really know. They're just having this conversation. Yes, sir.
Thinking about the agriculture, that generator, you hear a lot of people talking now, most of it's timberland now. They bought timberland. But if they cut the trees, which they're doing now, they sell the wood, they turn it into agriculture, and a lot of talk about blueberry farms. We have a lot of blueberry farms at the present time. Does people really realize how much water it takes to grow a blueberry farm? And how much water this comes, it has to come out of their aquifer? I mean, it's just unreasonable to an extent.
You're right, but I like blueberries. I eat blueberries.
I like blueberry also, but we're cutting timberland, which we're destroying our forests.
So your issue is conversion of forested ecosystems to more intensive ag.
We're destroying our own forests.
And some of this they could do already. This is rural ag. That means that theoretically they could do a lot of things. Some things they can't, but some things they could be doing out there other than growing trees. They just don't because the land doesn't really support it. Well, farmers will tell you this is good for growing pine trees and running cattle, and there's not much else because it's too wet, it's too low, too clayey. So I don't know. Yeah, they might be able to do that. I think they can make some money in it. Yes.
What's the water management people saying about this? Have they had any input? All these questions about water and district agents, it just, they're horrible people. I mean, if you go to them and you want to do anything with water, the answer is no. So do they have an input into this wetland that we're going to destroy?
Well, they're not saying no to too many people these days. I'm not sure about that. The Water Management District, you said?
Excuse me?
The Water Management District is saying no to everyone?
Oh, yeah. If you put anything in it, they're going to come look at your well. I mean, you know, they're going to say, you know, I don't think you could put but one well on this piece of property. The answer is no. I have somebody in my family that works for them, and they're bare to do business with water. So what's their input is my question.
Okay.
Have they put any input into this?
First of all, they help provide the data that everyone has to use. So when I showed you this map at the beginning, in Plum Creek, they hate this map. I guess it's because it's revealing, but that's another thing they said at their last task force meeting. One of the members publicly proclaimed, this map is dated, it's not even accurate, they're scaring people with it. Well, one, yeah, we are scaring people with it. You think you should be scared, you think you should see this is what the county looks like. A lot of people never see it. But the second part's not true. This is the most accurate, latest data from the Water Management District. Plum Creek's using the same data. So that statement, I'm not going to give the person's name, the person who said that, you know what he's talking about. So that's the first thing they do. They will have the requirements for how you decide what's a wetland and where they are. At some point, they will come in and do what they do primarily, which is issue or not issue consumptive use permits. Plum Creek has vowed that working with the Water Management District, they're not going to allow new wells in their employment-oriented mixed use, the footprint there inside the EA Park. They're saying they're not going to allow new wells there.
So
I don't know if they can do that.
So that's a no from the water management.
Well, what I think Plum Creek is saying is they're going to try not to involve the Water Management District in that. However, to supply the water to this new city and to deal with the wastewater, they'll be involved in that. Problem is, we won't know how or what they're going to say yes or no to until after the decision is made. We don't get down to the details until after we've given away the farm. That's the scariest part of it.
I got an app called Seeking Alpha just so I can look at transcripts of Plum Creek shareholder meetings, and they're pretty interesting and a little bit frightening. I recently read a shareholders meeting transcript from 2012 where they discussed Latcher County. And pretty much all they talk about is gaining control of water, number one. Oil and gas extraction and mineral extraction. There's the Heart of Georgia mega site, they named it ginormous million-acre hole in the ground in South Georgia mine that they are tearing up in partnership with Vulcan Minerals. And Vulcan Minerals bought Florida Rock here locally a few years ago. If under the comprehensive plan and, let's say hypothetically, if this zoning gets passed, what are their opportunities for oil, gas, and mineral extraction?
The opportunities are whatever any other landowner has. I've never heard that there's any natural gas out here. If there is, somebody will find a way to
The
get it.
shareholders think.
But I want to make it crystal clear, I am not suggesting they're going to be doing fracking. Okay?
I did not use that word.
To my knowledge, there's no natural gas here. I don't know the answer to your question. Are there minerals that are valuable? I don't know. It's not my profession. My assumption is if they have valuable resources on their land, they'll try to make money.
My question would be the entitlements they have now and the entitlements they stand to gain. How much ability would they have to just simply dig those up and do nothing, don't build a thing?
Well,
I'm thinking that a lot of this about building condominiums and houses is hooey. It's just to gain more entitlements, and the end game of the entitlements might be to do what they say it is in their own shareholder meetings.
well, on the 87% that they want to continue to grow trees on, presumably they can do anything you can do in a rural ag area. So all of that stuff, whatever they're entitled to now, and I'm not familiar with the law, we don't have those kinds of industries in Alachua County. So I don't really know that much about it. I'm assuming that they would be entitled to that, unless they accept a permanent conservation easement, which is what they promised to do. For the 87%, they're going to put an easement on it so that it can never be developed. Now, I covered why it can never be developed anyway, at least not until the oceans rise and we're all standing shoulder to shoulder. Then it might make financial sense to develop that land. But if the easement extinguishes those rights, it could. The easement could be structured in a way that says you're not allowed to do mining, you're not allowed to do natural gas exploration. I'm not familiar with any conversations that are going on with that right now. Just, it hasn't come up. Can you go back here? Yes, sir.
We are talking about 10,500 new septic tanks and wells, and up to 21,000 new automobiles in our area.
Let me stop you there. No, if Plum Creek does what they're asking for, they're saying that in this area in the middle here, it's not going to be on septic or wells. They're promising to hook it up to central water and then pipe the sewer, either treat it on site or pipe it to Hawthorne or Gainesville. It's a very vague discussion. That's a big question people keep asking. Where are you going to get your water? What are you going to do with your sewage? We don't have the answers yet because we haven't gotten to that stage of the process. And we want to make sure you understand. They're not going to put well and septic in this area. In fact, they probably wouldn't be allowed to by the county.
But on our secondary roads, we're looking at 21,000 cars at least. That's 2 cars per.
More than that. If you use national averages, you're looking at about 30,000 people in this area, and on average that would be about 30,000 cars. And they have claimed they're not going to build new roads. And I'm not sure what that means. I think what they may mean is they're going to build internal subdivision type roads, but no more big public roads, because obviously, there's only 2 ways into town.
Yeah.
You got to go around the lake. It's all going to have to funnel out on those roads. So 30,000 cars is bad enough, but particularly when it's all going on 2 roads, yeah, it's going to be a substantial impact. No doubt about it. I'll come back to you first time. Anybody else have a question?
Well, everybody's talking about what Plum Creek's gonna do, but they're not gonna do anything
Yeah.
but sell the land to somebody else with no guarantees of who will be buying the land. They haven't set it up in the plan to accomplish what they set out to do. There's probably nothing in the plan they submitted to the board that's going to suggest that that's going to happen.
No, there's nothing in their comp plan requirement that specifies who ultimately will develop the land or own it. They can sell it. It's their land.
It's a big dream. This is a dream that they've said this would look really cool there, but it's a dream and not substantial guarantees are out
I think they're making a lot of promises that are instilling some hope in a lot of people, and they're doing it in order to get the zoning on their land changed.
Yeah.
Or if it actually ever happens, it's hard to say. We don't know. We can't answer those questions. They will not build it. They've acknowledged that. They claimed, at one point they were claiming they were going to serve as master developer. I've never really got a good definition of that. I don't think they're obligated legally to do any such thing. We're going to sell it off, and they're going to work with their clients and give the clients what they want, if they possibly can. Yes?
Speaking of the zoning, I live in Rochelle, and we've got those orange signs all over the place down there, and all the way to Micanopy and 346 and Bell Highway. If they pass this, does that mean all that zoning, it's going to change all the zoning out there for the signs, right?
That's a good question. A lot of orange signs. We hope to have more green signs out there. We've got them here tonight. Take some if you want one. But by law, they're required to put those signs on all of their property, even in the areas that they aren't going to develop, because it's part of the envisioned Alachua sector plan. So even the lands that have permanent protections on them, when they sold all the development rights forever, they still have to put those signs up. So no, just because you see an orange sign doesn't mean the development's going to happen there. The development that they're proposing is going to happen in that area, right there. You all know where this is, right? You should assume this is Hawthorne Road down here. This is US 301, County Road 234, and State Road 2086. And a little bit outside of that in some areas, but that's where they want to build.
They should have some signs that's not even on their property.
You shouldn't. They're wasting money for doing that.
What got with it?
Okay. Yes, sir.
What's that rezoning? What is the purpose of rezoning it?
Because right now, it's all rural agricultural, which means they can't build commercial or intense development. It's got to be.
I'm not down there, they already sold it. A different timber company that sold the development rights on it.
Some of it.
But I live down on 346 and south of me to Orange Lake.
Yeah. You're in the area where the
They got
previous.
signs down there too, I don't understand that.
You're in, that's part of their larger land, but they can't develop it. As I was telling this gentleman, they've got to put those signs on all the land they own, even if they're not going to develop there. 38% of their land, this area down, all this area kind of down in here, around the lakes that you're talking about, that's the area that they sold the development rights to. I should say the previous owner, Georgia Pacific. My father worked for Georgia Pacific almost his entire career. I grew up in that industry. But they sold all of this land to Plum Creek 15 years ago. So they can never develop that, but they've got to put those signs on there in order to get the approvals for the other areas.
So they can't change that zoning.
No, that part of it's done. They sold the rights, it's done. The state holds the rights and not giving them up. Because this is part of the area that's around the lakes, trying to protect the water quality, from that kind of intensive development. It's not appropriate for that kind of thing. Yes, sir.
You say that comprehensive plan would allow 2,500 homes
In that area.
in the regional area that basically, and they're requesting 10,500. That just seems like a lot.
Yeah.
4,000, you're going to do a lot of nice things for the county. Maybe the county could consider it. How could the county consider almost a 5-fold increase?
Well, county has to consider anything that's put to it. When they're making a request, we have to consider it. It does seem like a lot. They want to build a city. I mean, that's what we're talking about. They want to build a new city. It would be the second largest city after Gainesville, in 10 years of its construction. It is a lot, so they want to put a lot of people in there. It's just very wet. They're going to have to obviously change some things. We're debating about how many acres of wetlands they would have to destroy or impact, and we don't really know the answers yet. But I mean, don't forget the commercial part, because it's a lot of homes, but it's also 15 Oaks Malls worth of commercial area. They're going to be mixed all through it. Mixed use, residential, commercial. That's the plan.
And I've seen this 87% you're talking about for their Alachua County-wide claims. But what about for the regional Alachua area? There are some percentage breakdowns?
Yeah, and in this little area here, where they want to do the development, they're also promising to put some of that into conservation. Again, it's some kind of forestry is what they're talking about. The bulk of it's out in these other areas, but they're offering to do like a little, there. See this little, again, this is an outdated map. This part's still accurate. That's Lockaloosa Creek, with major tributary. And they're promising to create a little, buffer along that leading down through there and put that into conservation of some kind. And it's not going to be a very effective wildlife corridor. It's just too small. I mean, bears don't move like that. They don't have GPS units strapped to them. They need to be able to move across the landscape. So we don't really think that it's kind of a toy corridor that they're promising to do. Yeah, they're going to deconserve some of that, and they'll have to conserve around the majority of the wetlands. They won't destroy. Because economically, again, it would just be impractical to do so, but they want to destroy some of it so they can kind of aggregate the dry areas into something bigger. Yes, ma'am?
At another meeting, you mentioned Holden Park Road. Is that what it's called, Holden Park Road? And that,
Yeah.
okay, their signs are along that road also. Are the Alachua County Commissioners in favor of the congested housing on that road?
That's kind of commission taking a position.
Okay, but I mean,
There's an application, and we will have to decide whether or not we want to do that.
when you change the zoning, it would be like for everything, or could you just single out, say, that road?
Theoretically, it's all on the road. This stage of the discussion is called legislative, and that just means that the county commission can attach any conditions they want. Once we get past that stage and give that first approval, then it moves into a different set of legal criteria. It's more like being in a court. There are only a very few things the county commission, your elected officials, can do. We can't say no to most things. We're kind of quibbling over details at that point. By the way, you mentioned something that just reminded me. Can I just quickly say in my own defense, some people have suggested that it's inappropriate for a county commissioner to be out making presentations like this because we're going to have to sit in judgment of the application. That is not true. It does not work that way. I'm not a judge. I'm a legislator. I'm paid to have opinions and to advocate. I tell you my opinions. You decide if you like what you're hearing. You either put me in office or you throw me out. That's the way it works. There's nothing illegal or unethical about a commissioner coming out to the public and talking about things that they think are important, they think you ought to know about before it ultimately comes to a county commission for a vote. So I don't have much patience for some elected officials who are taking the position that we're not allowed to talk about it. No, that's not true. We are very explicitly authorized to. In fact, I think we're beholden. That's what elections are about. If the candidate's not willing to take a position on the most important issues of the day, then what's the point of the election?
Exactly.
Did I answer your question? Yes, sir.
Mike, I want to just comment about jobs because I got involved with this thing because I went to the Plum Creek presentation in Hawthorne. I wasn't happy with the fact that they took in a lot of information. They just regurgitated the information and said, okay, we're all in agreement here. I mean, that's kind of the way it went. So I went down and met with them at their nice little plush little setup down at by the Chamber of Commerce. They have a nice display room down there, that kind of a dog and pony show. And Rose did a great job. She went over everything, but she didn't answer any questions. So then I came out, and that's when I kind of got focused where I am now. But I wanted to talk about jobs because everybody's talking about jobs, and they're talking about jobs for the people that don't have jobs, and the people that are having, real tough times. So they're very susceptible and very easily led because of their personal situation. But here's the bottom line: when these guys sell, whoever buys, of course, is going to be doing whatever they want to do with it. And they're going to hire the people that do the work on it, i.e. building communities, whatever it is they're going to build. And having been through this in Jacksonville when I was in the waste disposal business for a long time, I know that the people that come in to do the jobs are not local contractors. They come from Charlotte, they come from Kansas City, they come from Chicago, they come from everywhere. Because everybody bids on it, and the big guy with the lowest bid wins. And when he comes in to do a construction job, he brings in foreign workers. Jacksonville was loaded with foreign workers back before it was even legal. I mean, I used to watch the Border Patrol on sites, dragging them off right and left. Now they just drive on by. So the point I'm making, the biggest set of jobs that's going to be available for the foreseeable future, if this thing is approved, and I hope it isn't, but the biggest bunch of jobs is going to be in the construction industry. And anybody that thinks he can get his hammer and go out there and get a job is full of themselves. They're going to bring in groups. The border is wide open. They're coming across right and left by the day, and they're all looking for work, and they're all going to work cheaper. It's as simple as that. Believe it or not, but that's the way it works. So all these people down in Hawthorne and everywhere else that think they're going to have a job in construction, you can forget about it.
Okay, we all want good paying jobs. That's a real enticement. Any big player like Plum Creek, you assume they have credibility. If they come into the community, they promise they're going to do A, B, and C. They're going to get jobs, good paying, blue collar jobs. You know what every community wants, and very few seem to have anymore. You can promise that. You're going to get a lot of support, just in the hope. You know, they're building hopes. You made an important distinction between the construction phase and your assessment, I think, was fairly accurate. I don't know how much it would be local, how much it would be, I don't know. You're probably right. They're a national player. They probably have contacts all over. So there's the building part of it, which are temporary jobs. And probably not a lot of lasting local impact. What Plum Creek is promising is good paying, blue collar jobs in manufacturing and industrial in these areas. They can't say where it's coming from. They don't have any agreements with anyone, but they're promising that. They want the zoning on it, and at some point they're promising that that's going to happen. Okay, so a lot of people are willing to buy into that. There's not a lot of interest in the big industrial players, you know, the guys who build big factories. There's a reason they're not coming to Alachua County. It's just not really, we can't compete because we're too small. You know, we have constraints on development here, soaking wet areas. So, you know, a lot of us are wondering, what exactly are you talking about? What are these jobs going to be? And the mixed use that they're talking about, the commercial, we know what that's going to look like. It's kind of like Hale Village Center. Has anybody been to Hale Village Center? You know what it looks like? You know, you've got kind of like little boutique areas and restaurants and interesting places to go and walk if you live there and shop. But it's retail. You know, we've got a ton of that already. We don't need more of that. And in fact, they'd be in competition with that kind of growth if we approve them. What they're promising is something different. They're claiming we're going to do something fundamentally different that the county's not doing right now, and that's big scale industrial manufacturing. They can't say that. We have industrial and manufacturing capacity in the county right now. And I guarantee you, if some big player came and wanted to open an automobile assembly plant, we'd be falling all over ourselves trying to make sure that the acreage was there for them to be able to do that in the right place. There's no interest in that kind of thing. There's no demand for it. So just because Plum Creek gets their zoning doesn't mean those wonderful things are going to happen. It just means they're going to be competing with everyone else. That's what this is about. They want theirs too. They want to get the zoning changed and then they want to compete with everyone. Like realtors. So they don't have any specific contracts. I will say this, the one thing they can offer is that they have big blocks of land that are already under one ownership. A lot of our industrial and manufacturing is kind of broken up, 200 acres here, 500 acres there. If some really big employer wanted to come in and build a huge assembly plant, it would take a couple of square miles of industrial under common ownership. Plum Creek's ready to go. They have that. We think the partner Hawthorne, again, that we're not opposing, could provide that kind of opportunity. That's why we're not opposing that. We think, give them a chance. Do this part that's appropriate for growth. Show us what you can do. Come back in 10 years. But they're kind of taking an all or nothing approach at this point. You've got to take all the bad stuff if you want the good stuff. We don't think that's good faith negotiating. So no one can really speak honestly to the industrial part of that. Again, it's related to the Panama Canal. It's going to take 50, 75 years for all that stuff to filter out into the northern part of the state. Plum Creek's thinking long term. If and when it eventually happens, they want to be ready for it. But the idea that there's going to be any kind of short-term benefit for any of us, no. I don't think that's credible. Yes, sir?
Yeah. This thing is such a large impact to the county. Why isn't it put before the people in a public vote?
It's illegal.
Pardon?
It's illegal. You can't do that. A land use issue like this is specifically, that authority is given to the county commission. We can't delegate it. That's the short answer to your question. Indirectly, you can affect it. That's why I said, if you care about this, pick the right people to represent you in county government. However you feel about this, that's your job as a citizen.
It's illegal by county law or by
state
law? So there's no chance that there's going to be a vote on this?
No chance. You may remember 4 or 6 years ago, Hometown Democracy, a constitutional amendment. How many of you remember that? Was an initiative to put that on the ballot. You got on the ballot to amend the state constitution to allow for direct vote of the people in order to change the comprehensive plans in some significant way. I thought it was great. I supported it. It failed.
You know, there was another project like this back in the 80s where they wanted to develop all the way to Hawthorne and Cross Creek and that area. And it was put down and it resulted in the Cross Creek plan now. And that was actually beat down by little meetings like this, and the commissioner finally listened to the people. And so it can work. But
you got to get started early. So I didn't want to wait till this thing came to the county commission. None of us did. The people with the green shirts, everyone recognizes if you wait to start making noise until it gets to the county commission, it's too late.
Now, there's some real heavy hitters. If you go online and listen to who's supporting this, you know, presidents and vice presidents and et cetera, So, I don't, you know, the process is going to be through voting in your county commissioners. That's
Yes.
what you're saying.
Yeah, they put a lot of people on payroll, at least temporarily. I think I already got you, and you too. Yes, ma'am, I can contact.
I just got a couple of issues. Now, how does the water management feel about this? Because they're tightly partnered with Plum Creek on numerous lands.
Yeah, that's what this gentleman over here was asking.
Right. I mean,
And again,
they're not going to conflict with them too much.
they don't feel anything about it at this point. You know, their job is to react to requests for the use of water. And they have certain requirements for how water, which is still a public access, public commodity at this point. It's not privately owned. Their job is to protect it, regulate it in the public interest, and so they'll oversee that part of it. But it'll all come again too late in this process to really make any difference.
So all that up at Grove Park area, that didn't the water management buy the development rights on most of that Grove Park
Area.
It's on the other side of 20.
It's on the south side of 20.
East of 234.
Yeah, it's a little back up. Here is Hawthorne Road, State Road 20. Everybody see that? The lands that are permanently protected already are these lands here.
Was in the conservation easement, development rights were sold, right?
Yes.
Okay.
They can practice, it still belongs to them. They can grow deep trees there forever,
Right.
but they can't build on it.
Okay, just one other remark. For all of y'all that were or weren't involved with Rochelle, when the city wanted to sprawl out there and take it into the city limits, I don't know if y'all remember, but Mike was the man that kept that from happening. It really, I mean, we went to all the meetings and down this, and he was very, very excellent.
Thank you for
In
remembering.
representing the Rochelle residents, I thought.
This lady's had her hand up for quite some time.
This lady, right?
Get her, and then I have a question.
Okay. A lot of hands been up. I'm trying to get to all of your promises. Yes, ma'am.
I'm wondering if you think I need a helmet before I speak.
No. I wish there were more purple shirts, some purple shirts with Plum Creek here tonight, because I really want to talk to the people who don't already agree with me. So please go ahead.
Well, Mike and I go back a long way. I've worked on projects with him, and this will be one I've worked on the other side. When I started on this project 3 years ago, I had no earthly idea that there would be one single person in Windsor that would be against what we could gain from what they were offering. And I thought, this is the greatest opportunity that we've ever had. Our children go to F schools. We had to take ours out and drive them to private school. I thought, this is the greatest thing that's ever been offered to us. Mike knows we were offered a landfill. We had to fight that for years and get rid of that. And the one thing that I feel so bad about right this minute sitting in this building, I'm hearing so many negative things about a group of people that I have met with for 3 years. that are some of the greatest people you will ever meet in your entire life. They don't have anything ill against the people in Windsor. They have nothing but what they can offer, and that's not what I'm hearing. I'm hearing Mike's always been one of the greatest campaigners that I've ever known. He's won four times campaigning. So Mike knows what he has to speak about to campaign, and this is campaigning, y'all. But Plum Creek we all went in to the meeting, and the one thing that we noticed out of the whole group there's been 30 of us on each task force, and I've been on all 3. And the one thing that we noticed was, isn't this weird? We are able to come into some conclusions. Then we decided, well, you know why? Because we none have a personal agenda. We are trying our best to do something that will help the community. We didn't have our own selves as our agenda. We were none sitting there with an agenda. And we realized that we were all from different worlds. We were not the same party. We didn't come from the same amount of money in the bank. I was serving with some of the most elite people that I've ever met in my life, and I worked in the engineering world for 26 years. So I've known some pretty good guys. And I've been exposed to their language. And we just were blown away at how much we had been able to accomplish because we had no personal agenda. Now, Plum Creek might have had a personal one, but that's not what we were going by. We were setting this up ourselves. So when I hear that, it makes me look like I'm afraid my horns will fall off when I start to walk down there. And I will go out of here because to hear Mike tell us we have done a horrible thing. And to all of you people in here, I hope you don't believe that. I mean, I'm not telling you don't believe nothing he says. I'm telling you don't believe all that he says, because that's not true.
The only person that heard that is you.
No.
Probably the doctor.
Okay, hold on, please.
No, and I held my hand up for about 15 minutes, 20 minutes before I got to do this, so I'm not going to give up the floor yet. I want everybody in here to know that my feelings, I am so thankful to God that I live in the United States, where everybody's entitled to their opinion. And I hold it against not one single person for thinking different than I do on this. We have to live together when this thing is over. And I have served this community night and day for 35 years, along with Jim Arnett. Jim's out every night working with the community. And we've done that because we love the people in the community. And I do not want this project to divide this community. I want y'all to divide. I do not want to see I've seen some rhetoric on the Facebook that I'd be ashamed to put up there and put in front of people's faces. So I'm just asking y'all, if you don't agree with me, that is fine. Nobody's ever had to agree with me to be my friend or my neighbor. And I have never called and asked one single one of you when you called for the fire department, have y'all paid your dues yet this year? If you hadn't paid your dues, you know the truck might not come. We don't do that. We go where we're needed, and it does not matter. So I just want y'all to understand that me as a task force member, and there are other, Dorothy Brown is a task force member, Justin Williams is a task force member, and we have not done this to hurt one single person. We have taken it in our heart that this was a good thing for the community, and that's where we stand.
Okay, a couple of points, some of the things I think you said that we can all agree with. I'm going to start by saying that those of you who know me know there's a lot going on in my life right now. I've won 4 elections without meeting a Plum Creek. I'm doing this because I care very much about it.
And I'm doing what I'm doing because I care much about it.
Okay, but I mean, you
I love
suggested
this
I'm doing this to campaign, and I'm doing it because I
Well,
think
it
it's
is a
really
campaign,
important.
Mike.
Okay.
And where is the other 5? You've got 5 members on the county commission. Where's the other 4?
Good question.
Why aren't they out here passing out this information?
Excellent question.
I wonder, I love Mike. This is no fight between Mike and I.
If I may respond, because I listened to you very carefully, I respect your opinion.
I respect Mike as a county commissioner. I just wonder why in the world the other 4 commissioners aren't out here telling everybody out here, and you better listen to this.
I totally agree. I totally agree, and personally, I think they should be. But that's up to them. They can do whatever they want. I guarantee you, all of them go out in the community and do this for the issues they care about.
Well, are you doing these for yourself or for?
It's my turn. It's my turn. Okay, I've been watching this issue for many years, and it worried me a lot because I know it has the potential to fundamentally change this county in ways that I don't want. This is my home. I'm going to die here, and I don't want it to turn into something like I've seen happen in other parts of the state. I'm concerned about that. I think we need to be talking about it as a community. We shouldn't be waiting for 5 county commissioners to make a decision on the basis of a few meetings. I think that's important. I think all your elected officials, including city commissioners, ought to be out talking about this. You can take that up with them while they're not here. So I care about this issue. That's why I'm doing this. I think we all agree that we don't want it to be divisive. But it is inevitably divisive because people's homes and livelihoods and lifestyles are on the line. Most people who live in the country, as I do, choose to live in the country because we like living in the country. People who live in the city or suburbs, they have that choice as well. And you have some right to an expectation of continuity. You know, if I buy into this kind of community and buy a home here, I want some stability. You know, change is inevitable, but this is change in a cosmic order. It's a city where there is now country. So that's incredible. This is very important. It's bound to be divisive. The best way to avoid it getting ugly is for us to keep it factually based, a comparison of the plans, and for us to be talking to each other. And we're trying. Plum Creek doesn't want to talk to us, I assure you. Please, maybe you can intervene on my behalf. They told me to my face, we're not debating. Okay, so that's where it is. I think they're more comfortable in the public relations format. And lastly, I was very careful not to criticize or condemn individual members of the task force. I said they're all nice people, they're well-intentioned, they're sincere, including you and everyone else in that group. But we're being asked to believe that this nice face of the community is going to be calling the shots. And personally, I'm not going to allow that because I don't think that's true. I don't think it's honest. You guys have done some good work coming up with some basic planning exercises, but the output is essentially what's in the comp plan because they're just good ideas. The difference is you want to do it in this part of the county rather than in the other area. You want to do it in Plum Creek's lane. So again, I don't grudge any of you for doing the work that you've done. I wish you'd have some more disagreement. I wish you'd argue with each other. No one ever disagrees with anyone. It's kind of odd, but you all agree, and you're fine people. But that's who's going to make the decision. With all respect to you all, it's not going to be at all. Does anyone else have a hand up for 15 minutes? I don't want to hurt anybody. It's a lot of hands up. I'm not trying to slide it. Yes, sir, back here. Back here.
Mr. Biley, is there anything that prohibits Plum Creek, as owner of the property, to ask for zoning change on 175 acres or 300 acres? My understanding is this is a sectional zoning change, which the legislature will allow, and if approved, then they are no longer bound to the comprehensive plan that the people of Alachua County have adopted. It was set forth back in the 90s that all 67 counties in Florida had to either adopt and come up with their own comprehensive plan, or they could accept the state's minimal comprehensive plan. Alachua County embraced that because we saw that South Florida sprawl, and we didn't like it. We saw Orange County sprawl because Mickey took over. And we in Alachua County embraced that comprehensive plan. We were one of the first to turn in our complete plan and not ask for additional time to come up with a partial plan. So at this point, Plum Creek could go to Alachua County Commission and request Monsanto to have a plan, Volkswagen to have a plan, to turn 234 and Hawthorne Road into Jonesville. So they could request that. But now my understanding is by asking for this sectional plan, that they are allowed, if that sectional plan is approved, which will be the Northeast Flatwoods, which will be any land they did not sell the conservation rights to in other locations, that will fall under that blanket of zoning.
There's a lot there. But first, I will agree with you totally. This community does believe in planning, at least most of us. We have an excellent comprehensive plan. Okay? It's highly regarded around the state because we take planning seriously, protect our natural resource base here. We take it very seriously. It's why those of us who think it's under siege now are so concerned about it. The sector plan is kind of a new thing. Remember DRIs, developments of regional impact, that you used to be able to do. Basically, we got a governor and legislature who don't really believe in planning anymore. They're kind of old school. You got some land, do whatever you want with it. They did away with the DRI requirements, and they replaced it with this thing called the sector plan. There aren't any others in Alachua County. There's only been a few around the state. In some extent, legally, it's still a new thing. And the attorneys are debating about what it means. Technically, no, it's not outside of our comp plan. What they're doing is they're asking for, last time I asked staff, it was 90-something individual changes to the comprehensive plan, which would only apply to their land. So they're kind of carving out their land, and they've got their own plan, is really the right way to think about it. But it has to be adopted through and under our comprehensive plan. Part of the language in the sector plan approval is if there are any conflicts between anything in Plum Creek's sector plan and the rest of the comp plan, Plum Creek's plan trumps. Okay? So they have their own little area here with their own set of rules. So that much is true. That's about all I can say about that. Again, it's subject to the same kind of constraints as the rest of the comprehensive plan is, and the same kind of opportunities, which means that if somebody wants to change it, they just come back to the county commission and ask. That's one of the points I was really trying to make. Is
but
how
they
flexible
could
it is.
ask for zoning on 300 acres north of us or south of us.
At any time, any landowner can request anything. And that's why we think the part around Hawthorne, again, should be a separate discussion. See a lot more legitimacy to that. I do. Many of the people in our group do. Some may disagree. But we think that part of it's kind of different. Plum Creek hasn't shown a willingness to follow what we're doing right now. So we'll see where it goes. Questions?
Back to the county commissioners that are not here tonight. I just wanted to point out that there are two men in this room trying to be our county commissioners. And I'm sure they'd like to talk to anybody here after the meeting. That's Ken Cornell over there in the dark blue shirt by the wall. And Harvey Smith. I'm sure they want to talk to anybody who'd like to listen to them. They're here because they can. Thank you.
Thank you. Those would like to speak?
Well, what you're saying about the water, at the East Hawthorne Alachua, Indigenous Alachua meeting, I asked Rose about the new water ethic they're talking about, and she referred me to their one of their water consultants, and he said what they were proposing is to withdraw about 8 million gallons a day of groundwater and supply homes and industry and whatever with that, run it through a facility, clean it up, and put the treated wastewater back into the upper aquifer. And, right in the same area. And I said, the upper aquifer, and he said, yes, the upper aquifer. Because usually when you put wastewater down, it goes into the lower. And he said, no, the upper aquifer. That's what their water consultant. And I said, that's where people's wells are, right? And he said, well.
I can't speak authoritatively,
Yeah.
that's my.
But that's what their water consultant told me, in regards to where the water comes from and where it'll go.
I just know that all the discussions that are like these kinds of issues, they're all gonna be made later.
Right.
That's the scary part, we don't really know the answers to this
Right.
question. Yes, sir.
Could be worse.
I just want to let you know, for those who asked in the audience a couple of times, we did meet with the district on 3 occasions. We talked about floodplains, wetlands, water quality, water quantity. By no means are they pro-growth. There's a lot of difficult discussions regarding what can and can't be done with this land. So just want to share that with everybody that asked.
Thank you. Any other questions?
We're from the Melrose area, and we have a lot of people. I know probably everybody in this room knows, has met a few people who have said to them, we came to this area because we just couldn't stand the traffic and the sprawl in the center and southern Florida. Our little towns, our little, what are called rural clusters in this part of most of them are clustered in this part of the county, are unique little communities, Campville, Windsor, of course, Melrose, Earlton, Rochelle, La Clusaz is one of them, I believe. I don't think any of our little rural clusters would survive this kind of massive development, even approaching the kind of communities they are now. And as you pointed out earlier, there are a lot of us that like little towns. We don't like a lot of traffic. A lot of us complain about the amount of traffic we have now. And the concept of 10,500 homes and all the retail and industrial going along with it is just, I think it's unrealistic to imagine that our little rural clusters will survive even approaching anything like what they are now. So that's my biggest problem with this, is the sprawl, the traffic, the massive changes.
Good point. I mentioned the piggyback development, but you have a more interesting point, I think, and all the development's not going to happen on Plum Creek's land. Is that a way of getting us out of here? But the effect on the small towns in the area will be very pronounced, because some people are going to live in the small towns, which can be good, can be bad, depending on what kind of development you want. But Micanopy, Rochelle, Melrose, these communities are going to be directly affected by this as well. It's not just the forest.
I've been going to almost all of the meetings about concrete division platform, because I love where I live. I came here about 40 years ago, and I come from outside New York City. And this is my area of beauty. And as I listened, and I sat at the table, right at the table, and as I listened to their promises, and then I talked to other people, and then the big point to me was that they would only sell the land, they would not develop. And what you had up there on the screen about what the main man of Plum Creek said is that they will not develop. So they were giving us wonderful ideas, and I bought into them. But as I talked to other people, I realized they are not what Plum Creek has in mind for us. And then I understand that they own property up in Lake City, and they want that into development. And they, so 20 and 301 are direct lines to Lake City. If you look at Lake City, you realize it's a radiant point for getting to the rest of the United States. And if there's large industrial development over in Hawthorne, then that is a direct line to Lake City, and 10 runs right through their detectives.
Yeah.
So they are promising us jobs, and I want jobs for us. And I want our people to have good education, but if they are not going to throw more money into it to help develop, they're only going to sell the land, then it is empty promises.
I think it's fair to think about it is they're covering their bets. They're a smart corporation. They want to have options, so they put their money on different things rather than picking all of them in one. They have land. You mentioned the I-10 corridors. They have development going in there that's much more industrial intensive. Mississippi. They're doing the same thing up in South Georgia. All their land, all the big players radiating out from Jacksonville and the other ports are trying to guess where the development's coming. Buy the land cheap now, and make a fortune later. It might come here, but I guarantee you, you're going to be peddling the same product to the same employers and all of their other properties as well. In Lake City, and up in Georgia, and everywhere. It'll be what the client wants. So it's speculative. And they're doing it, everyone else is doing it. It's probably going to take a while to get to Alachua County. I mean, why are they wanting 50 years worth of rights right now? I kind of come back to that. Why so much, so quickly? I mean, why not, we don't know what things are going to be like in 5 years. Why force us to commit to a plan that gives you a huge number of rights? What they're claiming is 50 years worth. Why would we do that as a community? Start small. Let's see where things go. Seriously, do we need to leave? Is that what someone was telling us? Or I'll give you as long as you want to ask a question. Pastor TCO is still here?
No, I think something happened to the machine, but
okay.
I consider that God's will.
Before we all split up, I just make a quick comment, or a couple quick comments. The question came up, where are the other county commissioners? That's a great question. And I asked it of one of the county commissioners yesterday on the radio. And some of you may have heard our debate on the radio yesterday morning. My name is Harvey Ward. I'm running for Alachua County Commission, District 2. I'm this guy. The guy I'm running against, Commissioner Pinkeson, said, I really don't want to talk about that. I can't tell you how I feel about Plum Creek. Now, I can tell you this. I've done the research, and Mr. Pinkeson has been hammering away at the Alachua County Comprehensive Plan since he was elected 12 years ago. So you take from that what you will. Harvey Ward does not support the Plum Creek plan. And let me tell you why I don't. I met with Tim Jackson and Todd Powell and Rose Fagler for many, many hours. And I asked them a lot of very specific questions. First question was, I love the jobs idea. That sounds great. Who's going to provide them? We can't tell you that. When can you tell us that? After you approve the plan, we'll tell you who it's going to be. I said, well, we don't know. Are they going to be, and this is verbatim, is it going to be a cement plant or a biotech firm? We can't tell you until you approve the plan. Okay? I said, it looks like there's going to be a whole lot of traffic out there up and down Windsor Road. They said, oh, no. All the traffic's going to go out to 301 and 20. I said, really? Because it looks like your property's awful close to Windsor. No. All the traffic's going to be routed out toward those two directions, so it won't cost the county a dime. I said, okay. There are a lot of other questions I asked them. I spent many, many hours with them. I put a lot of effort into trying to figure this out because it sounded really good. I asked them about the Hawthorne part. I said, I love what you're talking about in Hawthorne. Let's just do that. And as Mike said, they say no. I said, no, really, can we just talk about the Hawthorne part and talk about the rest of it another time? No, it's all or nothing, Harvey. Well, that doesn't make sense to me. So I don't support this. I'm not going to eat up any more of your time, but when you ask where the other commissioners were, I wonder why Mr. Pinkeson doesn't come to things like this. Because it's fair for you to ask that question. You know where I stand.
I could answer a lot of those questions that y'all have brought up.
Please.
Well, Mr. Jackson and Mr. Powell wouldn't. Those two guys refused.
Let's take turns, keep it respectful.
Right.
Thank you all.
I want you all to understand where I am.
And again, I'll say again, all candidates are welcome. We encourage all candidates. Please come and tell us what you think. Again, I will answer questions as long as y'all want to ask them. You're free to go. But if you want to talk to me privately afterwards, I'll do that too. So I'm going to keep answering questions. Just go as you need to. Yes, ma'am.
How many seats are open on the commission that we're going to vote?
Two is an empty seat being vacated by Commissioner Baer. The other one is a seat that B. Pinkeson is running for re-election. Any other questions? Oh, yes, sir.
I guess you call it the Hawthorne there, the clays and so on. When you destroy this much wetland, and this water don't go through the clay layer, where does it go? In our homes?
Well, according to there are state laws that require that now in modern development, you're required to capture all of the runoff of the stormwater on site somewhere else. So theoretically, you're not supposed to allow it. We have something of a checkered past gauging that correctly. Climate patterns are changing, and what used to be a 100-year storm event is now a 10-year storm event. And the county sort of stays out in the western part of the county. We upgraded our stormwater requirements a few years ago to the requirements. So the short answer is, they claim they're going to capture it all on site. And by law, they're required to demonstrate engineering to do that. And frankly, I don't have any reason to doubt it. It's more of the biological impact that we concern a lot of people. You can dig a hole in the ground, but it's hard to recreate the true method.
Is Alonzo County prepared to handle the sewage and build sewage treatment plants?
Lots County's not going to do that.
Who's going to put in sewage?
Plum Creek would have to do that, unless they work out a new home. Looks like it's breaking up. Thank you all. I appreciate it. Thank you.